First of all, we need to know what is an exponential function, and that is any number raised to the x and is represented as y equals to a to the power of x. Now, in this example, we are going to analyze the natural number e raised to the x. Here, we are comparing two graphs, e raised to the x and 2 raised to the x. We can see that they have different inclination, but they have the same characteristic point, and that is 0, 1. To get the domain, we need to know what values are included, which are all the possible numbers in the x-axis. And if we see the graph, we conclude that the domain goes from -infinite to infinite. Same thing in range, but here we take in account all the possible values in the y-axis. If we check the graph, we see that the line gets infinitely upwards, but it never touches 0. Okay? So we conclude that the range is 0, infinite. This is important, 0 is open, okay? Because it never touches 0, it has an asymptote there.
Exponential growth is the development at an increasingly rapid rate. The function of exponential growth is represented as a equals p e to the power of rt. A is the final result, p the initial amount, e the natural number, r the growth rate, and t is time. The characteristic is that it grows a little bit at the beginning, but at some time the growth is going to increase much more faster. Exponential decay is a decrease at a constant rate.
On April 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine exploded. Many power plants, employees, and people nearby lost their lives on the accident. Contamination and trace deposition of released radionuclides caused the evacuation of people surrounding the plant.
Chernobyl reactor had a lot of uranium dioxide fuel and fission products that went into the atmosphere, and it contaminated a lot. Belarus had more than 50% of the contamination that went into the USSR. Also, a big part of the Russian Federation was polluted, and also parts of the north of Ukraine. Due to these authorities from the Soviet Union, people had to be taken away and evacuated to a safer place. People argue that a lot of cases with thyroid cancer were due to the exposure of radioiodine. Soviet governments had to take measures to decontaminate the world and providing a place where people can actually live.
The equation for exponential growth and released neutrons is y equals 3 to the power of x. Y represents the amount of neutrons released during fusion, x amount of chain reactions, the asymptote is y equals 0, reference point 0, 1, domain all real numbers, and the range is 0 to positive infinite.
Full restaurants start out using a total of 5 million grams of flour a year in our initial year, and they were asked to reduce their consumption by 2.5% this year. The results would look something like this. By 2010, there will be 5 million grams. By 2011, there will be 4,875,000 grams. By 2012, there would be 4,753,125 grams. By examining this data, we realize how the amount of flour used goes down consistently by percentage but not by a linear number, and it continues to predict the amount restaurants reduce flour consumption by each year infinitely.
Another real-life example can be a biologist. If he is researching a new discovered species of bacteria, he can put in a first hour, he puts 100 bacteria into a specific place to determine the growth. After 6 hours, he measures 450 bacteria. We are assuming exponential growth, so we are looking for K in this bacteria. The units will be in hours since we are measuring time in hours. The beginning amount is P and the time is 0. So for this problem, P will be 100. The ending amount would be 450, which is the total of bacteria that was at the end, and the time is 6 hours. So the answer would be 0.2506 bacteria.
Nuclear energy has pros as well as it has cons. Some of the advantages of using it is that it releases really low levels of carbon dioxide. so it's environmentally friendly. It has not that much harmful gases. The problem is that the waste of nuclear energy is extremely dangerous, and it has to be carefully looked after thousands of years from the event. Mexico's nuclear plant is located in Laguna Verde. We think that it is safe if it is built correctly and with the most responsible employees in the country. The country of Mexico is known of people being lazy and irresponsible, at a point that we Mexicans believe in so. Many plants could lead to a disaster, so let's hope ours not to.
Could the Chernobyl 1986 nuclear disaster have been prevented?
Chernobyl was made by safety trial, gone terribly bad because of misinformation and keeping secrets from employees. The accident could have been prevented completely if used effective training, management, and regulatory vigilance before.
Once the explosion happened, was there any way to stop the radiation spread and its pollution?
If the people working there had removed the contaminants before spreading, but it is not as easy as it sounds, since it is almost impossible to remove all of them.
Do you think that the radioactive pollution generated by this disaster reached Mexico?
Yes, Chernobyl occurred near a river called Pripyat River, which is connected miles away to the Black Sea, then to the Mediterranean Sea, and finally ending at the Atlantic Ocean. And sometime later, people found contamination and trash by Chernobyl in the Gulf of Mexico, which could have landed to the beaches of Mexico. The risk of gaining fatal radiogenic cancer increased from 0 to 0.02% in Europe and 0 to 0.003% in the Northern Hemisphere. Approximately 100 of cesium-137 were released during and subsequent to the accident. The environmental consequences of nuclear disaster and use of nuclear weapons are fallout, vaporization of the human tissues, acid rain, fresh oxygen is burned, and leukemia.
What do you think and feel about these consequences? What would be a solution proposal for this situation?
We think that it is bad already to mess up with the environment, not only with the Ukraine, but with all the world affected. The situation is getting better over the years, but the effects of Chernobyl are not. A solution about the disaster never happening again would be to improve communication between workers, new designs of the reactors with controllers in the same room, and hire the best and most responsible people.
In this project, we had to use exponential. I really like this project in particular, since we used a math problem connected to a real-life example that was Chernobyl. So we just not learn about math, but we also learn a little history. I like to work in teams with other people from other campuses, since two brains work more than one, and we all had a great and different ideas, because each one of us have a different perspective and way of doing things. I found communication a little complicated, but at the end everything worked out fine.